Hello and welcome to the Winning Hand podcast. Welcome to the inaugural episode, in fact, of the Winning Hand podcast. I am the host, Boom Guy, and I am joined by my co-host, as always, Lazy Titan.
That's me.
And Kaiko.
And that's me.
Welcome. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, you guys excited to kick off this podcast adventure?
Yes.
Couldn't be more excited.
First official episode
The first official episode
of The Winning Hand.
Of The Winning Hand. And here we are. And we should tell the audiences, give them kind of a brief introduction to what this podcast is. Titan, do you want to give us a little intro?
The conceit of the podcast is basically that we take one card every episode and we discuss it in thorough detail. Everything about the card, from the art to what decks we play it in, to what it says, what it does, what it costs, everything we can possibly think of about a card. And then we give it a rating and go on to the next one.
Yeah, that is basically the podcast. We will thoroughly dissect a single card in the ever-expanding card pool of the Marvel Champions living card game. And I think this is going to be great. I think this is great for new players who maybe don't know the card pool very well. And I think there's also just as much to offer to experienced players who've been in from day one, who maybe don't use certain cards, maybe don't play certain aspects anymore, or cards they've forgotten about. I think this is a lot to offer to everybody. Let's start. Maybe a quick introduction, since this is our first podcast, and let's talk about kind of how we came to the game, when we started, and what hooked us on Marvel Champions. I'll start. I will say I was in from almost the very beginning. I bought into the game around the first wave of heroes that were released. That would be Captain America and Ms. Marvel. That's when I bought in, and I've been in ever since. I have bought everything that has been released up to this point, and as we speak, that is through Rogue and Gambit, and I'm a huge fan. I like the game a lot, and I have no plans to stop anytime soon.
I was similarly also in from the start, round about the same time as you were. We got in at the same time. I am also all in on everything up to, as you said, Rogue and Gambit. And yeah, I also can't see myself stopping anytime soon. I love this game, and I think it only gets better.
All right, and so I'm a bit of a newbie in comparison to you two, so I think that kind of adds a little flair, an interesting dynamic to this podcast. It was actually you, Boomer, who got me into it. I've been around since Wave 5. I think that was Spider and Spider-Ham around that time, so fairly new. I'm a bit of a collector. I need a completionist, so I need to have everything, even if I don't exactly play everything or haven't played everything yet.
There's time. There's plenty of time.
There is time. There's plenty of time for me to play all the spiders.
Because you're a spider guy, right?
Yes, a Spiderhead all the way.
And is it just the movie, the Spider-Verse movie that came out, or you've always been a Spiderhead?
I've always been a Spiderhead, but I will say the Spider-Verse movie, best movie.
So good. And are all the characters in that movie in the game yet?
We don't have. I guess in the
Spider-
game, but maybe not as heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Noir as an
listen.
ally.
Yeah, Spider
All right,
Noir.
Noir.
We don't have.
We don't have Kingpin.
Yeah,
Kingpin,
Tombstone.
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 No,
yeah.
Tombstone's
no,
a-
Tombstone's
he's
in.
a minion.
An encounter card, I think.
Yeah,
right?
he's an encounter card.
Oh yeah.
I forget what set he's in.
I think he came with the Green Goblin, maybe.
Yeah, is he in a mess of things? Is that what he's in? One of those
No, that's
encounter sets?
Scorpion from the core set.
Scorpion, and I don't know. I'd have to look.
Anyway, back on topic.
Maybe we kind of buried the lead here because we've now given away that Tombstone is not the card we're talking about today. But what we should, before we get to a card, we should talk about what we've been playing lately. I guess I'll kick us off. I have been playing a lot of Vision lately, who I will fully confess and say was about the point in the game when I almost stopped. When Valkyrie and Vision came out, it was kind of a low point for me in the game, and I don't have a lot of interest in Vision. I don't have a lot of interest in Valkyrie as characters. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to keep buying everything But now, a year and a half or whatever it was later, after Vision released, in the last 6 to 8 months, I would say Vision has become not one of my favorites, but one of my most played. I quite enjoy Vision. I think he's really fun. I think his mechanic with his intangible and dense side is really good. It felt clunky to me initially when the character was released, and I didn't quite like it, but I have grown to really appreciate it. And I think the card pool has expanded and made Vision better, which is generally, in my opinion, the sign of a good hero design when more cards come out and the characters improve. But I've been playing a lot of Vision protection. Protection is my chosen aspect always, but Vision has some good stuff to do. So I've been playing a lot of Vision kind of minion control builds.
Recently, I've been playing. I've been trying out Gambit, the newest hero to Marvel Champions. In my chosen aspect, aggression. I like me some damage, but I've been trying to use his charge counters to their fullest extent, using new cards like Warrior Skill that let me double up on that, and stuff like Hone Technique to triple up on that sometimes, to try and do as much damage as I possibly can as consistently as I can. So far, I don't think I've perfected it, but it is a lot of fun to use those charge counters. And the thwarting in Alter Ego from Gambit is pretty helpful. And you get to stack look at the top card of the encounter deck, so you know what's coming. I like him, and he's one of the first heroes that's really incentivized me to flip. Most of the time, I usually find that I want to stay in hero form as much as possible. Gambit's really the first hero that I feel like I want to flip because there's upside, which I think is good.
Mm-hmm. I like when a hero kit incentivizes you to flip. Miss Marvel is always my example. With all the amazing personas she has, I feel like I want to flip down every turn to get those extra cards. Captain Marvel's another one, actually. Makes you want to flip down a lot. But I think it's fun when they make you want to flip down, even though it's generally disadvantageous in the game.
I think it's best when you want to, as with Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel and Gambit, rather than when you have to, though, with someone like War Machine, where you kind of need to.
Totally agree.
We'll talk about him at some point.
Kaiko?
All right, so I mentioned before how I'm a huge Spiderhead, naturally I've been playing
Which
a lot
spider?
of Hulk. The Hulk with symbiote suit. I think that Hulk carries the game. I think he's a necessity to have as an ally. He kind of works no matter how many players in the game. The thing with the Hulk is everybody says that you can't win with him, right? But I think the secret is that if you win all the time, that just doesn't make the game fun. So that's why it's a choice that you lose with Hulk. That's the
I played with you a few times, man, and I don't think we ever won a game where you brought out Hulk.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. It's a choice. I choose not to win with Hulk because what fun is it to win the game in 3 turns, That's just not fun. So that's why I choose to...
It's always your opening move, too. We sit down, everyone gets their decks out. All right, what villain are we playing? What hero is everyone playing? And there comes the Hulk deck box, just landing on the table like just 3 pounds of disappointment.
To a chorus of sighs.
I have him ready top in the top part of my deck box. He's always number 1, ready to go. It sets the tone for the rest of the game,
It really sets a low bar, and then it's hard not to clear it the rest of the night.
Only go up
and then you smash through it. That's the thing. But that's what I'm saying.
Someone else.
I jump in. I choose to lose because then your other wins become more. They feel more victorious.
Yeah. No, I won't argue with that. You do feel more victorious when you win. Okay. Well, cool. So that kind of wraps up what we've been playing lately, and I think that'll be a good segment to kind of talk about in the future. Let our listeners know what we've been playing. Today's card of the day is a staple from the core set, one that we thought would be great to start with because
a perfect
it has
benchmark,
been the
if you will,
benchmark for so long. Really, it still is the benchmark. It's a core set card. It is an identity-specific card, and Keiko will be happy because it comes from none other than Peter Parker.
That's my boy.
I'm going to let you introduce the card because you're a spider guy.
Yes. So you pretty much already broke everything down. So he's from the core set. So, of course, this is perfect for me to start with because that's pretty much the extent I've played in the entire game. But even then, that's a lie. I've only played Peter Parker. I've only played Spider-Man. I'm in love with Spider-Man. So I think it's very fitting that one of our earliest episodes is an identity-specific card for him. And it is a great card that I think still holds up very well.
I think it does, too.
Just for...
What is it?
I can introduce it.
All right.
Some of you may have already guessed it, but we are talking, of course, about Swinging Web Kick. A 3-cost attack event from Spider-Man's 15 identity-specific cards. It is an aerial attack superpower that deals 8 damage to an enemy and gives you a science resource when you spend it.
I mean, it's so good. It's such a great card. You know, I don't play a ton of Spider-Man anymore. I think he has fallen off a little bit for me. I played a lot in the early cycles of the game. I think he still holds up, but I just don't have as much fun with him anymore. I think some of his identity-specific cards are lacking. But this card, oh boy, I'm always happy to draw into a Swinging Web Kick.
It's all you need.
Let's just start at the top with the art. This art is incredible.
This
is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's a home run. I have loved it since the first time it came out. I love the sense of motion. I love his beat-up suit. I love the full extension on the kick against the much larger Rhino. It's so good.
I like his glowing eyes. Not something you see a lot with Spider-Man, but it is very cool to see not just the standard white, but the glowing blue.
I don't know if it's from a comic or if this is custom art, but it's really, really good.
So
I like this art a lot.
That I've noticed is that some cards have a credited artist, and my assumption with that is that credited cards are custom art, whereas non-credited cards are pulled from comics or some other published piece.
Yeah, I think that's a solid theory.
And this card does not have any credit, so we can only assume it comes straight from the pages of a book.
So this is, as you said, Lazy Titan, this is a 3-cost event. It's a hero action, attack, deal 8 damage to an enemy. That is just as simple as it gets. I will say that when I took this card out to prepare for this episode, I noticed for the first time that this has the aerial keyword.
I feel like I notice it every time I pull out Spider-Man, and I always run through my head of why that would matter, and it so far doesn't.
I just can't think of a reason why it would matter.
Yet.
He's not aerial. It's an attack, and it's a superpower, so
Which
depth
does
focus
matter.
can come into play here. Yeah, depth focus can reduce the cost. That's good. The flavor text is Tally Ho, Spider-Man.
Yeah, which I think is a little weak.
I agree. I was going to say, I think the flavor text is a little weak. It could have been better.
Especially
for such a classic card.
Especially for Spider-Man. Someone whose quips are part of his personality.
He's well known.
Well known for
quippy.
Quips and jokes and all that. I think Tally Ho is funny, but I don't think it gives you the full Peter Parker experience.
So I'll say, yeah, for me, the art is great. The blue and red of Spider-Man's kit colors are awesome. I love the way the whole design looks. I like the little face in the bottom corner. I think some of those are kind of creepy and don't hit, but this one is good.
They're best when they're masks, I think.
I love everything about this card. The art, at least. It's so good.
It's so clean and so detailed. The colors, the line art. One thing I do want to point out is that I have an art background. So these are some of the things that I noticed. I know that Titan pointed this out. He's got glowing eyes. I'm not all too familiar with the comics. I read some when I was little, but then I kind of dropped off, so I'm not even that educated in that department. So I don't know if this is like an Iron Spider suit or anything. One thing I do notice is his rear. I'm liking how pointy it is. It matches Rhino's horns.
It is dead center.
That's a weird thing to say. It is right in the middle.
Rhino is politely looking away.
No, that's what he's smacking him with.
Oh.
I suppose you could see that angle.
Just doubled down on it. Okay. I think that didn't occur to me. I do like the light in this. I think it's the light reflecting off his eyes because you can see the strong side light on the back of Rhino's head. I think this is a winner art-wise for me. 10 out of 10.
I do like the contrast and the colors that make him pop from Rhino. So both characters are clear. You can see the action, the dynamic posing in both of them.
Yeah.
Both done very well.
Yeah, no argument here. I think it's great. I don't really have more to say about that. What about the theme? What theme of this card?
As far as theme goes, I think this card is maybe lacking because there's just not that much going on. Some cards have more things going on, but maybe I'll put the point out there that maybe that's silent genius. Maybe we've stumbled into the theme because you're not supposed to see a swinging web kick coming. It just comes out of nowhere. You take it and you're down, and that's all you need.
It always felt real basic to me. It's straight to the point. It just says deal 8 damage. The flavor text is right to the point.
I think it matches a theme for Spider-Man, for Peter Parker, I should say specifically. In a way, Peter Parker's kind of meant to be the everyman. He's kind of that definition of anybody could be in that mask, anybody could be in that suit. One thing, theme-wise with the art, I love how stretched out he is. I love the posing. Spider-Man, again, Peter Parker is very flexible, and basically every swing, every attack, he displays that. His what the card actually does, deal 8 damage to an enemy, I think perfectly matches the power that he puts out. Spider-Man is insanely strong, and he can just do it with minimal effort. And I think that this card kind of conveys that perfectly.
And to that point, I think that goes into another part of this card, which is that you said that this describes his real power. It has yet to be matched. There's no other card in all of Marvel Champions that will give you more return on investment as far as cost per damage than this card. It is the benchmark.
Sad that this is only a Peter Parker specific card. I feel like this would benefit for, again, a little bias as a Spiderhead. I think this would benefit for other spiders. Swinging web kick on its own, and then just that damage output. I would love to see this on, maybe not Miles Morales. He's not really meant to be a powerhouse. Maybe Jessica Drew.
She's got some good cards too. I'm
she
sure
does.
We'll get to those.
But I think part of it is that the spiders they're all spiders. They all have effectively the same powers, but they all have very different flavor as far as the game goes. They all feel very different to play. They all feel unique. They all feel special, which I think it's a good way to differentiate these people who you would think would be very similar, but they are all very, very unique.
Yeah, I will say I think I'm with the theme on this one. I think it is straight to the point, just like the text. Deal 8 damage to an enemy, which still to this day, 3.5 years into the game, is the benchmark for damage at this cost. It's called swinging web kick. He gets right to it. He doesn't mess around with a fancy quip. This is the damage dealer. This is the big one that you pull out of your sleeve and you knock the villain out. I think it's good. I think the theme works. It's not quite a home run for me like the art is, but I think the theme works. And the fact that it still holds up, so we'll get to that in a minute when we talk about the power of the card, but that helps. Well, let's just say we're right into the power right now then. 3 for 8, we've said that's the benchmark of damage. What do you guys think about that?
Well, as far as the game goes, in the game, there's thwart and there's damage. Thwart is always valued more highly. You always have to pay a little bit more for the same amount of thwart. But 3 for 8 damage has been... Spider-Man came out in the core set, and 3.5 years in, nothing beats that. There's no card that is, on its own, better. Which I think is impressive as far as Spider-Man goes, but also impressive as far as game design goes and power creep goes. It's impressive to see a game that's gone on for 3 years, and the power creep, which is common with card games, has not broken the game in such a way that old cards are unusable.
No, I agree with that. I think that's important to point out, that the core set cards still hold up, just like the core set villains. I think the core set, for the most part, still stands on its own legs.
Not all of it, but it's still definitely usable.
Oh, there's definitely some that's showing its age. And in fact, some of Spider-Man's own kit is showing its age. There's a couple cards that I wouldn't call unplayable, but are just not very good anymore.
Swing web kick, not among them.
No, nowadays, however, I will say, the big damage cards that come in kits now come with something else.
You get a little flavor.
You get a little something. Wolverine gets 3 for 8, but he gets
piercing and overkill
and piercing, I think.
Gambit gets to split that damage.
He gets to split the damage.
Rogue
Cyclops now has 3 for 11.
1 for 11.
If you use his but you have to use his optic blast
and
too,
exhaust yourself,
which does 3. Yeah, so in terms of one card doing raw power, it hasn't been matched. But they've flirted with it, and some of the new characters can do something close, but they get you a stun card, or they get you a tough card, or they get you something else.
More than 8 damage can be done. It's not impossible, but it just means
Sure.
that every other card that comes out is evaluated against Swinging Web Kick, see whether it's worth that cost to damage, and every card that exists, it's pure efficiency. It's as good as it gets.
Now, I'm not one of those who turns the game into a math exercise. There are some who, they want to divide ratios, and every point of damage is worth 1 point, however many resources, and every thwart is worth 1 point, whatever. That's not fun to me, so I don't go down that road. But I think even the math heads would agree this hasn't been beat yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of the most impressive parts of it, that they came out with a card like this, and the power has not crept beyond it. So that's cool. That's cool to see, actually. I don't know. It never feels bad to play this card.
Nope.
I'm never toss up like, oh, maybe I'll pitch it. Like, I pretty much always play it when it's in my hand.
Yes, and I think that's the other thing too, is that trade-off of, like you said, you're never really in a huge debate, an inner conflict amongst yourself of whether or not you want to play this card. For all intents and purposes, you basically spend the turn to play this card, and I think you are satisfied with the result in the end. And I know we mentioned a little bit before that later cards kind of have more extra added to it, but I think in comparison to the other Spider-Man identity cards, or how you build Peter Parker in general, this is one of the stronger cards in general that you could play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're playing solo, I don't play a lot of solo, none of us do, but I've dabbled, and there's not many villains that can take too many more hit points than this.
That's 2 or 3 of those that now kill anybody.
Most villains are, they're not hitting even 20 per player, right? You're hitting 14,
Some people
16
like
per player.
Thanos are, but that's the big bags.
Maybe. But most of them, I think, are hitting between 14 and 18 per player.
Yeah, roughly.
A couple of these, they're basically knocked out.
And it doesn't do anything special. It's just damage. But it also can be pointed at anybody, minions and villains. It's a superpower, which can matter. Not all the time, but it's nice to have. And I think it's worth not forgetting that it is a mental resource, which increasingly more and more matters. Mental resources, maybe just for me as an aggression player, but if you're playing Hone Technique, if you need to spend this on something else, it's there for you. It's never dead as a resource. It's never dead as damage. It does exactly what you want it to every time you need it.
It doesn't play well with Hone Technique because it's not an aggression card.
But it's a mental resource for your aggression cards.
Yeah, this is a great card, and it's nothing fancy, but it works. What's your aspect of choice with Spider-Man, Keiko?
So I've pretty much stuck with Justice most of the time. I think I've played Protection once or twice, but to me, I think his Precon is one of the most balanced. Really, whenever I introduce anybody, I'll use Peter Parker as the starting deck. I think he's easy to grasp. I think because of cards like this, it's easy to bring in newcomers because there's not a lot to understand, not a lot to keep track of or look into. And he just plays generally well with Justice because he has cards like these to kind of balance out that damage output at the same time with his thwart.
That damage that Justice often lacks is shored up by cards like this, which are exactly.
He doesn't have a lot of great thwarting, so that Justice aspect helps kind of his weakness, I would say.
Yeah, so when I'm busy thwarting, I usually get excited when I see this card because I can take down all that health that I've been needing to up to that point.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong. I think, especially what you said about Spider-Man being one of the better ones in the core set to introduce someone to. If I was introducing a new player with a core set, I would say Spider-Man or Captain Marvel are probably the best to start with. I think the others, if you're new to card games or if you're new to living card games like this, I think the others could be a little tricky.
They're a step up.
Black Panther has kind of a weird timing mechanic, and Iron Man is a lot of build-up, and She-Hulk, the less said, the better. That's probably unfair to She-Hulk, but she's okay. She has some things that are okay, but she's, I think, clearly the worst one in the core set. Then the last category that we talked about with these cards is fun. Is this card fun to play?
I think every time.
Yes, like I said, I get excited every time this enters my hand, especially when I get 2 of them. And it's usually a card that I will always keep, even if I know I can't spend it in that turn. No, I think it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, this might be his best card. For me, it's either his best or
It might be
second best card, probably.
even against stuff like Aunt May and Backflip.
I think those are the other contenders. I think Aunt May is probably his best card.
It's just
In
so
my opinion.
powerful.
She's incredible. I think Backflip is good, but the problem with all defense events is you have to have it in your hand at the right time.
But Backflip is so good, you'll hold it. That's
but the
kind of
right
charm.
time isn't, it's not always there,
Mhm.
right? So that's, unless you're playing a protection heavy deck where you're consistently defending, you spending that card to defend, unless it's a lot of damage, means it's a resource you don't have for swing web kick. So,
Mhm.
and you're kind of at the mercy of the tempo of the villain if you're playing defense cards. So I think you're just in the driver's seat more and can direct more of what's happening if you play single web kick. But if you want to make a hard case for Backflip, I probably wouldn't argue too hard because Backflip's an incredible card.
It's incredible, but I think Swing Web Kick. Yeah, I'd say it's second. Aunt May's just too good.
Aunt May's
Can't
so
be
good.
beat.
Aunt May, I think it's his best card. So that's my opinion. I think it's really fun. It's, again, 10 out of 10 on the fun for me. It's not complicated. There's not a lot of mechanics. You don't have to flip a million cards to make something work. You just spend 3 resources, you slap down Swing a Web Kick, and you go about your business.
And it never doesn't work. In any aspect, no
Yeah.
matter what you're doing, it always does exactly what you need it to. If you're playing Justice, it does the damage you need. If you're playing Protection, it does the damage you're missing. If you're playing Leadership, it does some damage when your allies can't do it. And if you're playing Aggression, it does the damage that your aggression cards sometimes can't match. Even when you're playing
Yeah.
the damage aspect, those damage cards still, they don't match the king. So it's
hard
always
to
there.
match. Yeah, Swing Web Kick's incredible. So I think this is a good card for us to start out on. It just hits across the board. So for me, this card is just really, really good. And I think, like I said, Spider-Man, he's kind of dropped off a little bit for me. But honestly, talking about Swing Web Kick again kind of makes me want to break him out and give him a shot again.
Yeah, no, I actually, bringing this up kind of makes me want to play as him again.
Yeah, now I want to play Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, we should play Spiders next time we play, guys.
Yes,
I'm down.
please.
Spider-Man symbiote suit, got it.
Spider-Man symbiote suit.
Oh,
Man,
no,
that's gonna be a device.
Maybe that should be our card.
Maybe it's
So
fun
we'll talk
card.
about that one. Wow, yeah, symbiote suit. That's the one we got to talk about because that is
A divisive
that is a
card.
card that I think it's divisive. I think that card splits opinions. I think.
But we'll save our opinions for that.
We'll save
that
our opinions
episode.
for symbiote suit. They will, trust me, they will come. We will get those.
It might get heated.
It might get heated. I know there's a difference of opinion in this panel. I've played with you guys a lot, and I know that there are differences of opinion. But again, like you said, let's save that for now. So unless there's anything else to talk about, I think we're good to wrap up. Anybody have final thoughts on Swinging Web Kick?
I do have one. This kind of goes back to the theme as we were talking about different aspects to play him in. Just a fun little detail that kind of came to me is I like the idea that Spider-Man, all the cards that you're playing before Swinging Web Kick are just kind of him dancing around the villain, outsmarting the villain, setting up for the villain, and then he waits for that right timing to make his move, and that's kind of what Swinging Web Kick kind of displays for him.
Hell yeah.
I think that's a perfect way to explain it. If you're
Yeah.
playing Protection, it's him protecting himself and the civilians to then swing in for that big hit. Justice, it's him thwarting the plan before he finishes the blow. It's a great card, and it works everywhere. It's jack of all trades.
And that's where I think it's okay that the flavor text isn't quite hit because this card's all business.
Yes.
All the jokes are on the other cards, all the little funny quips and the puns and everything else where he's distracting you, but he's not distracting you anymore. He's coming in hot, and he's bringing the heat.
Bring a real heat,
Unmatched
unmatched heat.
I just love the size of Rhino on the card too. and
Yes.
how kind of lithe and small he is, but he's
Still clearly
just straight fuego.
giving him a
He's just
hit he'll remember.
bringing heat under Rhino's chin, and I love it. Full extension, just yeah, it's so good. So I really want to play Spider-Man.
One last
I know,
thing
I really want to do that too.
before we wrap up. I think
All
we
right,
should.
Titan.
I think we go back through and let's all give our personal ratings out of, let's say 10 for Swinging Web Kick. What do
10.
you think is? We'll say 5 is true neutral. Where does this
True
card
neutral.
fall?
Let's
Personally,
jump in.
I would give it a 9.
9 out of 10.
We've-
Coming in.
We've talked it
hot.
up all episode. I mean, it's good. It fits in every aspect. It fits in every deck. It's the best. It's the Spider-Man card you always want to draw. You're never upset to draw it. You're never upset to spend it. It does whatever you need, and it never doesn't work.
You know, I will say, I'm going right with you. I'm going B+. I think it's right there. I was going to say it's good, not great. It's like just below great for me. I wish it did something else. I wish it had a stun or an overkill or something, because there are times when some damage gets lost. If I have a pesky minion that only has 5 hit points, I feel like I'm kind of losing some damage. If I'm stunned, if I got a guard enemy, like there are times when I feel like I'm wasting some of that damage. So for me, B+.
I think I'm also going to give this a 9 out of 10. Aside from the scoring, I am a little confused on what Ariel's doing. I did also just notice that, like you did, Boomer. I don't know how to tie that into anything.
Yeah.
My thing that doesn't give it a perfect 10 is the flavor text. Tally ho. Not everything has to be jokey, but like he's the quip master, you know, like just something that isn't tally ho. Something about the extinction of rhinos, like off the top of my head, you know, like that's he just needs that for Peter Parker. That's my only thing.
Boomer had a good point that this card's all business. This is where the jokes stop, but also part of the simplicity of that card, there's a lot of empty space at the bottom of that card. The card ability takes up one line of text, and it might be nice to fill the rest of that up with a good joke about something. It's all business. It's all you need.
This is, you know, the game's been around for 3.5 years, but as far as I can tell, it's a classic card.
Yet to be beat.
And it's yet to be beat. The fact that it's still establishing the benchmark for damage is incredible, and a testament, as you said, to the designers and design team and the game. I think that is an awesome card to kick off the Winning Hand podcast, our initial episode. And hopefully you got something out of this, whether you're a new player, whether you're an old player, and you'll join us for another episode of the Winning Hand podcast. And I will say goodbye.
See ya.
See you later.